Are you also among those who worry about others? Do you also often put your own needs aside to help those in need? If your answer is yes, then you will have already realized that helping a person is not always a good choice. In fact, your altruism, however noble, can often actually hide pitfalls. Ask yourself whether your help, instead of bringing relief, could actually harm both yourself and the person you are helping. And stay until the end of this story, because you'll discover 10 surprising ways you can hurt yourself by helping others. Because you need to know that there is a dark side to helping people, and we will see it thanks to this Zen story steeped in Buddhist wisdom. And we will also see how to discern authentic help from a useless sacrifice. For example, how can we avoid falling into the traps of overprotection, intrusiveness, or lack of respect? Through the wisdom of an ancient Zen master and the stories of his disciples, you will discover how a gesture of altruism can turn into a boomerang if not accompanied by awareness and discernment. But before continuing, subscribe to the channel and activate notifications to stay informed when we publish new content for your personal growth. In an ancient Buddhist monastery located among the mountains of Japan, Master Taìko sat surrounded by his pilgrims and disciples. Today, I will talk to you about an often overlooked aspect of the spiritual path, the dark side of helping. Taìko began in a calm voice. Helping others is a noble and precious action, but if not practiced with awareness, it can hide unsuspected dangers for our mental well-being and our spiritual growth. The disciples listened attentively, attracted by the words of their mentor. They had always believed that helping others was an act of pure goodness, without shadows or contradictions. Like a rushing river, our compassion can overwhelm ourselves and those we intend to help, undermining our inner peace, continued Master Taìko. If we completely immerse ourselves in the suffering of others, without maintaining the right distance, we risk being overwhelmed by darkness and losing our inner light. The disciples nodded, reflecting on their past experiences. They had helped friends through difficult times, dedicating themselves body and soul, but in the end they had felt frustrated, resentful, and lost. To help authentically, we must first cultivate our own inner peace and emotional balance, explained Master Taìko. Only from a serene source can pure and beneficial help flow. If we ourselves are troubled and unstable, we cannot bring true relief to others. The disciples began to understand that true compassion was not a blind sacrifice, but a conscious act that required inner strength and wisdom. We must learn to discern between what is truly useful and what risks harming us, continued the monk. Sometimes our desire to help can be motivated by selfish needs, such as the need to feel indispensable or to receive approval. In these cases, our help will not be genuine and may even cause harm. The disciples looked within themselves, wondering if their actions had sometimes been guided by motivations of this kind. To help purely, we must be rooted in the present, free from expectations and attachments, Master Taìko stated. We must offer our help with an open heart, without expecting anything in return, and accept that sometimes our help may not be appreciated or even rejected. True compassion is not tied to the outcome, but to the sincere intention to alleviate the suffering of others. Remember, the Master continued, that the spiritual path is a journey of personal growth. Helping others is an important aspect of this journey, but it must never dim our inner light. Let us learn to help with wisdom and compassion, supporting others without losing ourselves. Taìko's words resonated in the hearts of the disciples, illuminating their spiritual path. Now I'm going to teach you 10 ways you can hurt yourself when you try to help someone, the monk said in a calm voice. Knowing them, he continued, will allow you not to suffer and not to make others suffer. Imposing one's will is like a river trying to divert its course, said the monk. One day, a young monk named Kenshin came across a village inhabited by poor and oppressed people. Moved by compassion, he decided to help them improve their living conditions, and with great zeal, he began to impose on them his ideas about how they should live, work, and worship. However, as time passed, Kenshin realized that his help was not welcome. The people of the village saw him as an arrogant intruder who did not understand their culture and traditions. Kenshin felt frustrated and disappointed, unable to understand why his sacrifice was not appreciated. Master Taìko explained to his disciples that Kenshin's mistake was to impose his will on others without respecting their freedom and autonomy. True help does not consist in shaping others according to our ideas, but in supporting them on their path of personal growth, he said. How can we help others without imposing our will on them? Asked a disciple. We must learn to listen carefully, understand their needs, and offer our support in a respectful and non-intrusive way, Taìko replied. Ignoring your needs is another mistake you shouldn't make, he continued. One day, a young nun named Sakura dedicated herself body and soul to caring for a sick elderly man. She spent days and nights by his side, neglecting her sleep, nutrition, and health. However, as time passed, Sakura became seriously ill. She no longer had the strength to care for the elderly man and was forced to retreat. She felt guilty and frustrated, convinced that her sacrifice had been in vain. Sakura's mistake had been to ignore her own needs to help others. True help cannot arise from blind sacrifice, but from conscious compassion that also includes self-care. How can we help others without exhausting our resources? Taìko asked his disciples. We must learn to take care of ourselves, both physically and emotionally, in order to offer lasting and authentic support. Taking responsibility for others is too great a burden, said the monk, introducing another way of helping others that brings pain and frustration. One day, a monk named Taro came across a friend who had lost his job and family. Moved by compassion, Taro decided to take care of him, offering him a place to live and food to eat. However, as time passed, Taro noticed that his friend showed no desire to improve his situation. She relied on him completely, without looking for a new job or trying to reunite with her family. Taro felt frustrated and resentful, as if his burden had become unbearable, and he realized that his help was not doing his friend any good, preventing him from taking responsibility for his life. Master Taìko explained to his disciples that Taro's mistake was to take on the responsibility of others, depriving his friend of the opportunity to grow and face his own challenges. Real help consists in encouraging autonomy and responsibility, not in replacing others. How can we help others without carrying their burden? Asked a disciple. We must learn to create a supportive environment that fosters growth and autonomy, encouraging people to take responsibility for their own choices and actions, replied the monk. Invading privacy is another way of harming oneself. It's like a flower that withers because the sun is too strong, continued the monk. One day, a nun named Hanako became very worried about a friend of hers who seemed depressed and isolated. Trying to help her, Hanako began asking her persistent questions about her private life, pressuring her to share her secrets and fears. However, as time passed, the friend felt more and more oppressed and suffocated, so he shut himself down, refusing to share his feelings and distancing himself from Hanako. Hanako felt frustrated and confused, unable to understand why her attempt to help had such a negative effect. Hanako's mistake, Taìko explained, was to invade her friend's privacy, not respecting her need for space and confidentiality. Real help is creating a safe and welcoming environment where people feel free to share what they want without pressure or expectations. So how can we help others without invading their privacy? We must learn to respect their boundaries and give them the time and space needed to process their emotions and deal with their difficulties. Another mistake not to make when we try to help others is to lose our identity. One day, a monk named Kenji met a very talented artist, but with an introverted and insecure character. Kenji, admiring his art, decided to help him become known and successful. She encouraged him to enter competitions, organize exhibitions, and promote his work. However, as time passed, Kenji realized that his support was unintentionally dimming the artist's inner light who, driven by the desire to please Kenji, began to distort his artistic style. And by conforming to public expectations and market trends, the artist's paintings had lost their originality and depth, becoming mere copies of what was required by the market. So Kenji began to feel guilty for having contributed to this decline, for having unintentionally pushed the artist to betray his true artistic essence. How can we help others without making them lose their identity? Asked the disciple. Encouraging them to express their true essence. We need to give them the space and support to explore their creativity and express themselves authentically, Taìko replied. Disrespect is another way of hurting the people we want to help and ourselves, the monk continued. One day, a woman named Yukiko came across a group of children playing on the street. Noticing their rude and disrespectful behavior, Yukiko decided to intervene. He scolded them severely, trying to teach them the rules of good behavior. However, as time passed, Yukiko noticed that the children were not receptive to her teachings. In fact, its severity distanced them even further, making them feel judged and misunderstood. Yukiko realized that her approach was not effective. True teaching cannot arise from coercion and reproach, but from respect and understanding. With a new attitude, he began to listen to the children carefully, trying to understand their reasons and emotions. And instead of judging them, he offered to help them find creative solutions to their problems, encouraging them to express themselves in respectful and constructive ways. Over time, the children began to change their attitudes. They felt listened to and valued by Yukiko, and this pushed them to behave more responsibly and respectfully. Yukiko had learned a valuable lesson. True help does not consist in imposing one's ideas on others, but in creating an environment of respect and understanding where people can grow and learn independently. Another thing you must avoid doing is overloading the people you want to help with information, Taìko said, introducing another important aspect. One day, a monk named Hiro met a friend who was feeling overwhelmed by worries and stress. Moved by compassion, Hiro began bombarding him with advice and suggestions, trying to help him solve all his problems at once. However, as time passed, Hiro's friend felt more and more confused and overwhelmed. The amount of information and advice was excessive, and he failed to discern what was truly useful from what was just background noise. Hiro realized that his help was not effective because true support does not consist in bombarding others with information, but in helping them find the inner resources to face life's challenges. So how can we help others without overloading them with information? We must learn to listen to their needs, understand their situation, and offer them our support in a targeted and non-oppressive way. Overprotection is also something that harms both ourselves and those we want to help, the monk continued. One day, a nun named Mai became very worried about her younger sister, who seemed shy and insecure. Moved by compassion, Mai decided to protect her from all dangers and difficulties, trying to solve every problem for her. However, as time passed, Mai's little sister became more and more frustrated and dependent on her sister. She did not have the opportunity to develop her skills and autonomy, and she felt unable to face life's challenges on her own. Mai realized that her help was not effective because true support does not consist in protecting others from every obstacle, but in helping them develop the strength and resilience to face life's challenges independently. With kindness and patience, Mai began to encourage her little sister to make her own decisions, face her fears, and learn from her mistakes. He offered her his support and encouragement, but he didn't stop her from having her own experiences, making her own mistakes, and growing as a person. Mai had learned a valuable lesson. True help isn't about doing things for others, but about helping them discover their inner strength and realize their full potential. So how can we help others without overprotecting them? We must learn to trust them, encourage them to make their own decisions, and face life's challenges with courage and determination. Lack of detachment is another way to hurt yourself. One day, a nun living in the monastery dedicated herself body and soul to caring for a sick friend. He spent days and nights at his side, neglecting his sleep, his nutrition, and his health until he became ill and could no longer be useful. The friend, realizing her state of suffering, asked her to take care of herself. He told her that his help was invaluable, but that it could not be effective if she was unable to recharge her energy. "Master, how can we help others without losing sight of ourselves?" asked the disciple. "We must learn to set healthy boundaries and take care of our physical and mental well-being in order to offer authentic support." But what does this story teach us? That helping others is a noble and compassionate act, but must never turn into a sacrifice that harms ourselves. True support is finding a balance between giving and receiving, between compassion and wisdom,